Be with us.
I need a list of who's coming
Okay.
so I can make a thing. We're live. Uh-oh.
We are live. Good. Ladies and gentlemen, this is All Things Books and Publishing with Yvonne Mason and Mary Brotherton. And as you see, we just carry our conversation on into the live, even though we weren't live when we started the conversation. Today it's just the two of us. We hope that we have some folks join us in the chat room. We know that Gwendolyn is with her father in Dawsonville. Not sure where Bonnie is, but if they show, they show. If they don't, they don't. We will soldier on as we always do.
And we never know, Dar might pop in too.
And she might. Who knows? But I'd sat down and I've been super, super busy because every time I think I get caught up with getting new books done, I get a whole slew of other new books, which I am not complaining. We have at this point in time 121 titles. We will be 2 years old.
And that's from like 24, 25 authors.
Yes.
So that's an average of 5 per author.
Yeah.
Now, wait. That's only in 2 years' time.
Be 2 years next month, the week of June 3rd.
And didn't that publicist from Penguin say it takes her 2 years to develop a single book?
Yep.
They must have a huge team to be able to develop so many books at the same time and get them out.
I don't see how they can. And you're not seeing that many new releases coming out either.
No. And they don't put them. How many did we sell in our first quarter of 2020?
In our first quarter, we sold over 200. In our first quarter. We're in the 6th day of the month of May, and we're already up to 10 books, with Ellie Ryan's book Footsteps on an Empty Beach as the #1 in our little world right now.
Crazy.
So this is what we have done since the end of last month, first of this month. We have 9 books that are either out or getting ready to come out. We have 101 Green Gardening Tips by Sherry Ann Richardson that is coming out on 5/25. You Might Be an Editor by Mary Brotherton is live in all 4 formats. That's hardback, paperback, Audible, and Kindle. Footsteps on an Empty Beach by Ellie Ryan, which is our biggest seller so far this month, is live in all 4 formats. 101 Self-Sufficiency Gardening Tips will be coming out on the 25th. That is also by Sherry Ann Richardson. God's Timing comes out on 5/25. That is by Gwendolyn Law. It is the 3rd in her affirmation series.
I'm so glad she picked up on our suggestion and
Me
is running with
too.
that.
Journey on a Hostile Sea, Book 2 of The Wilderness of Rim by Roy Owenby, goes live on 5/18. The Black Dahlia by J.C. Masick. It is The Black Dahlia, a Jake Slater murder mystery. It is based on the most notorious crime in Hollywood in 1947, the story of Elizabeth Short. While fiction, it is historically correct. If you don't know who Elizabeth Short was, I suggest you research her and then read The Black Dahlia when it comes out. Then we have Mistaken Identity by Mary Brotherton, which comes out on 5/11. Now that does not include 2 more gardening books by Sherry Ann Richardson, 101 Secret Gardening Tips, 101 Green Living Tips that come out very shortly. ONB has sent me yet another book that I will be putting up called the Bishop's Mitre.
I'm excited for that one.
Oh, me too. If you don't know what a bishop's mitre is, then go research it. Let me put it to you this way. Usually when I read a crime fiction and suspense, I can figure out the who done it, the who they done it to, and why they done it, and like the first chapter. Oh no, Roy has taken this book to an entirely different level.
Good.
It will keep you on the edge of your seat until the end of the book, because the beginning of the book, the prologue of the book, puts you on a path that's not really the path until later. That's all I'm going to say. And Sunday, Mary and I were in Melbourne at the Authors for Authors. It wasn't really a book event. It was more an authors convention.
It was they called it an authors conference, a writers conference.
A writers conference.
Because they had classes and things like that.
It used to be a very large event that took place off of Egali in Melbourne, but it has shrunk considerably. And there were many, many different speakers that were there. There was a young woman there that made me laugh as I got home and thought about her attitude and her
Demeanor.
We all had to get up and introduce ourselves, and Mary and I don't say a whole lot about ourselves because we don't need validation. I do my 11-second elevator speech and move on. And this young woman, who's probably in her early 20s, young enough to be one of my grandchildren, or great-grandchildren, spouted off all these wonderful things she does. She was a screenwriter. She'd written a couple of books. One Netflix was talking about picking up, and she was going to talk about how to get your book into a screenplay for the screen, be it movie or TV. So I invited her on this show, and her attitude was one of, I'm too good, and you're not good enough. And I thought, honey, if you only knew what you don't know about Mary and me and where we've been in our journey and the accomplishments that we both have had over the years, but it's your loss. In the interim, we have some authors that will be coming on in the next few weeks. Next week, we will have a gentleman by the name of Robert Jacobs. Robert Jacob is an author, he's a speaker, he's a living historian, and he has written factual books about the pirate era and the pirates that lived and plundered during that era. He also is involved with the Florida, what's it called? The Florida
Authors and Publishers Association.
That thing.
FAPA.
Well, I was invited to be a judge for book covers that were put up for medals. I got 14 of them. And Mary, I have to tell you, some of those book covers should not have seen the light of day.
I can only imagine.
And I was very objective, but I was very strict. And the reason for that, ladies and gentlemen, is because a book cover needs to grab the audience. There was one book cover by a gentleman who writes poetry, and he wanted the book just a solid blood red with black lettering, and his reason for that was he wanted his name to be known, not the book.
But that doesn't speak. Now, I could see if he wanted a solid red background and a white or blue light color contrast. But black on red, we've learned, doesn't work well. And It's fine. Yeah, there. In fact, I have one right here. Tiny little book. Oh, Tale of Two Cities. Now that's in gold. This is a remodel, reprint. Some days my words don't come out.
Understand that.
Last night I was talking to my husband and I must have said 3 different synonyms of the same word. And I said, I knew eventually I'd get the word out. He said, well, I knew what you meant from the first word. I said, but I didn't use the right word. And that's important to me as an author. But the solid book with contrasting ink, okay, My Steep Steps is kind of like that, but it's not. It's an image of steps going up, and it's black, but it has red writing for the title of the book and the title of my name. Oh yes, but there's
depth to the.
I want to say the juxtaposition, and I don't need to use that big of a word.
The cover, all right, the cover has depth to it.
It's gray, like a concrete wall, with the black steps, which makes the steps almost look 3-dimensional. Because if you just have a solid background,
well,
how does that stand out?
Well, it's a book of poetry, and the front of the cover, ladies and gentlemen, the front of a book cover needs to be the doorway to wanting you to pick up that book and see what it's about. The back of the cover should invite you into that book. When I saw the cover for this book, I went, what is he thinking?
Yeah.
Because nowhere does it even give a hint of what is inside the book. His comment was, I want my name to be known. Well, honey, you're not the product. You're the brand.
His name will be known if he puts out good work.
Exactly.
One thing that I like about the contest that they have at FAPA is they give you a rubric.
Yes.
They give you a guideline. So you and anybody else who's judging these covers, you have something that makes it less of an opinion.
Yes.
Opinions play a part because you wouldn't be human otherwise. But they do this with the stories that they're judging as well. What sets this book apart in your mind versus do they have a title that catches your attention, or do they is the cover too busy? You know, that you can have a nice solid cover, or you can have a cover with images, but you can also have too much busyness on a cover.
And that was the problem with a couple of the covers. Had the back cover been less busy, then the front cover would have stood out. And had the front cover not been so
Cluttered?
large,
Yeah.
then
Well,
it would not have been so distracting.
you and I have learned the value of adding a transparent box.
Yes.
If you have a busy cover, that's fine, but you have to find a way to make the text on that busy cover still not blend into the busyness. So we've been working with transparent boxes. You don't want to just slap a white box on the back of your cover and put your text on it, because that then looks like an afterthought.
It does.
But if you do it the right way with a little transparency, then it works.
And another issue that I found was one of the authors used a photograph, and the photograph was so, I don't know if the designer didn't know what they were doing or they didn't have the right program. The photograph did not complement the title, and it was blurry. It was almost an insult to the book.
We've had authors who made suggestions that we use their photographs. And Yvonne has always said, do you want to blend in or do you want to stand out? And they always choose to stand out, which means we don't use their photographs.
No, because it never ends well. And it's like I told another author, I've been reading and looking at book covers since I was a little girl, even before I went to school. And I can tell you right now, the covers of the Dick and Jane series were insulting to me. They were boring. The storyline was boring because I was already so far advanced as a reader that I needed 3rd or 4th grade books in 1st grade.
Yes.
And what a lot of children's authors don't understand is children start to school now at 3 and 4 years old. By the time they're in 1st grade, 99% of them read on a 3rd or 4th grade level, some of them higher.
How many children get their mother's or their father's hand-me-down cell phone? Mom or dad upgrades it, so they don't want to throw it away, so they keep service on it, or they just keep some programs, keep it charged, and they let their children use it for entertainment. They can read or look at any number of things. So children children as young as a year or 18 months, and if they're old enough to hold it in their hands, they're going to learn quick. And I've heard of parents who give a 3-year-old their phone and say, Johnny, help me unlock this.
Right. And they unlock it.
Yeah. The children know more about these technology programs than the adults do, because children, there are 2 generations now, I think, that have never not known technology.
At least 2 generations.
Probably more. Yeah. I mean, anybody, the Alpha generation, who's my grandson's age, in the 20s, early 20s, they've never not known technology. And the generation right above that, which I don't remember the names, they've grown up with it. And my own sons are in their 40s. They were teenagers when we got our first computer. They've really, their entire adulthood has had cell phones and whatnot. But my point is, if a child can access a cell phone, they're exposed to more sophisticated graphics than the Dick and Janes.
And the sad part, ladies and gentlemen, is children's authors are lost in the 40s. And children expect a higher book form. And that's what we do here. We want the child The book to grow with the child, not for the child to outgrow the book. So let's take Mary's book, The World's Best Grandfather, for example. That book is 7, 8 year old reading. However, if mom gets that book for that child when it's a wee one, 3, 4 months old, and starts reading that book to that child, by the time that child is a couple of years old, that child is still relating to that book. And by the time that child gets in school, that child can read that book to his grandfather or her grandfather.
And this is one of those books that's not just a cute story. It teaches geography.
Yep.
Not in depth at all. It is an introduction.
Yes.
A lot of my books introduce children and parents to new concepts that they can then go, that's an interesting word. I want to learn more about it. Because The World's Best Grandfather talks about grandfathers from all over the world. And we use the name of the countries. We use a cultural reference to each country. We use the name of a grandfather in that native language. Like for Spanish. Spain is known for their flamenco dancers. So I reference the Spanish titos, which is the word for grandfather, in Spanish. And I talk about them coming in with fancy guitars and other things. I forget exactly how I phrased it. But we talked about the Finnish varies who come in their boats, and it shows them fishing. So everybody has something, and if you're the least bit curious, as every child is, they're going to say, why does that grandfather have a suitcase full of fish? Why does this grandfather, why is he flying an airplane? Why is that grandfather dressed in red, white, and blue? Well, guess what country he's from. And I also talk about the melting pot that is the United States of America, because the grandfathers speak English, Chippewa, Greek, and Hebrew. And, we have so many different cultures in our one country, but I wanted to expose the children to something. And it would have been cute to just have some drawings of grandfathers or the flags of the country or whatever. But Yvonne took this 5 steps farther. These grandfathers look like they could come out of the paper and give this kid a hug. They're very realistic looking. I mean, they're not real photographs. There's no doubt about it. These are images. But they're very I want to say enticing and captivating. Maybe those are the words I need. I don't know. But they're very inviting. They're very inviting to get to know a little bit more about the country, the language, and the culture, and the customs.
And by like I said, by the time the child is even 7 or 8 years old, if they are read to from the time they're wee ones, they can read it to their own grandfather.
Yeah.
What we are trying to do, ladies and gentlemen, is the same thing we do to ourselves. We try to dumb down our children, and that is wrong. Our children are a lot smarter than we give them credit for. And why would we want to give them books that are an insult to their intelligence?
I remember being a child, and like you, I read above my grade level. And so I would find words that I didn't understand that may not have been used in my home. but they were important to the story. And I would go to my mother and point out a word. I said, "What's this word?" Her first response was, "Sound it out." Well, what does it mean?
Look it up.
Look it up in the dictionary. And I learned so much. And that's why I, for whatever reason today, I'm struggling to use the right word. But it's because as soon as I form a word in my head, like inspiring or captivating or inviting, 3 other words pop in there, maybe 6 other words. Wait, is this the best? And that's part of my being an editor. Is this the best word for this application? Usually, I have no problem just throwing the words out and I know it and I go with it. But there are days that my brain says, we're not awake yet. We're still processing. Inside my head, there's that little circle that you see when you're on your computer and it's loading. It's still loading up here this morning.
Well, in our adventure on Sunday, we again got Robert Jacob, who will be our guest next week, and then we have 2 others, Linda Wright and Deborah Gaskill. They will be joining us also. I will also have a woman an author that I've known for many, many years. She was on my old show, Off the Chain, and that is Joanne. What is her last name? You know who I'm talking about? Joanne.
Was she there Sunday?
Yeah, the redheaded lady.
Joanne Fisher.
Yes, Joanne Fisher.
She's a hoot and a half.
She is 2 of them, and she was excited because she loves being on the show.
Well, she understands the value of exposure.
Yes.
Any publicity is good publicity, is what they tell you in the marketing world. And I recently was invited or approached to be on someone's blog. He said, I'd like your permission to feature. You might be an editor. I mean, these people get hits from every new Amazon book that comes out, and they reach out. And I told him, I said, if you can feature me for free, knock yourself out. But if you're going to ask me to pay you, I'm not interested. He said, nope, totally free. And I thought it was interesting the way he did it. He featured me as the author. So there's this big, gigantic face of me. And it's my author's picture that he snatched from Amazon. And then there's the cover. But he got the cover that's somewhere out, that's being used as an ad, the one with the gold lettering.
I saw that, yep.
Yeah. So he didn't use the actual cover of the book, and that's okay too. But what he did, he didn't even put my author's bio. He just put the back of the cover description, which is what is on Amazon. No big deal. He copied and pasted, sent me the link and said, here's my blog feature. And I thanked him and wished him well, and I shared it, because you just never know who's going to get inspired by what situation. But, would I have preferred that he gave me an actual feature that wasn't just copy and paste? Sure, I would have. But I'm happy with that.
Well, again, exposure is exposure, and this is another reason that Mary and I went to this event. We've known Valerie Allen for many, many years. We've been to her events. We both were at one of the first ones that she did back in the day. And Mary and I talked for an hour about trusting the process. And because of it, we got some new authors. And one woman came up to us almost with tears in her eyes. Remember Susan? Who
I
came
do.
up to us? Sandra Somerset said that she would be coming to us to do her work. And we got, again, several people. We don't publish them, but we are willing, more than willing, to put them on this show because they're indie authors and we support indie authors.
And we have a few authors that are self-published, and they said, I'd like to redo this book with you. So they came, I brought every book that I had available to me, which is, I have 20 books, but there are 2 that are not yet published, so I can only do 18 books. But I put them out on display, and everybody had the opportunity to come and look at these books and see Yvonne's quality of work. And we even used Lizard Patrol in our presentation because when we got into the Q&A, people were asking questions, and one of the questions had to do with graphic novels. They wanted to know I think the question was, what is a graphic novel? And most people understand a graphic novel. It looks like a comic book, but they're typically for adults. So we explained that our graphic novels don't look like the comic books that, yesterday I had the name of the man. He did this one graphic novel called Sin City. I didn't like it. Didn't like the story matter. Didn't like it when it was turned into a movie. But whatever. It was a cinematic success, supposedly. His name will come to me after 5 minutes after we quit the show. The attendees were, I thought, they were highly engaged. They were very questioning, which is definitely what you want. You don't want to do a presentation and say, yeah, does anybody have any questions? And they're like, Miss Lunch.
Can we go now?
They really didn't want to leave at the end.
The beautiful thing is one of our own authors was in there, and I said, give your statement, whether good or bad. We don't care. What do you like? What do you not like? Because I want authors to be honest. And she says, there's absolutely nothing that I don't like.
Yeah, she was the best testimony. But she was also a good fetcher.
Yeah, was indeed. She was a sweetheart. But ladies and gentlemen, what I gleaned from this conference is the thing that stuck with me the most. I can't talk this morning. Is the fact that this young person who thought she had all of her ducks in a row and knew everything about everything absolutely knows nothing about anything. And that's sad because she's not going to make it at all because she's not willing to learn. And this is what we tell the authors that come on board. Unless you're willing to learn and unless you're willing to trust the process that is tried and true from between Mary and I, we figured it up at the conference. Between Mary and I together, we have more experience and wisdom than anybody in that room. And you go, what? Yeah. Between the two of us, you put us together, and we have had more experience than anybody in that room. And
we've been doing it for so long independently, and now that we've joined forces, it makes us a very powerful team.
Exactly.
And people picked up on that. they I felt like, especially toward the last 2 or 3 hours of the day, our table stayed busy. There were times that people were standing in line to talk to us. Now, did I plan to sell books? I wished I could have. I sold one. I only sold one copy of The One Left Behind. But the whole purpose of my books, and that's why I didn't bring tens or, dozens of books. I just brought 1 or 2 or 3 maybe. I wanted to have a decent display, and I wanted to show what our capabilities are and to show our covers. And we were able to discuss that's how Yvonne got invited to be a judge for FAPA. They hold I think it's annual, might be biannual.
An annual
Book contest. So people send in their books hoping to get a medallion or a medal to go with it. When I first started, by the time I'd gotten to Sally's Heart, which I think was my 4th or 5th book, I wanted to get a medal. I wanted to get an award, and I did. I mean, it's not, if you're a decent writer and you have a good story, it's not that difficult. But there is a big pool to choose from. I just wanted, at that point in time, I needed to feel validated. I had to have this award so I could tell people I'm an award-winning writer. But I don't see the value in that anymore. Right now, I want to spend more time writing than I do applying for contests. That takes time.
Well, not only did I become a judge for the covers, but now they want me to come speak at next year's conference. And that is because
you spent a long time with Robert having conversation. And then he brought his wife over, who is another aspect of FAPA.
She's the editor. She judges the interiors of the book on content, on
mechanics and grammar and all that.
Everything that has to do with the editing. The whole purpose of this conversation is not to pat ourselves on the back. It's to let those of you who are still doubters know that when we tell you something, it's from years of experience, and we don't have a formula except to trust the process. Every book is unique. Every author is unique. Every cover is important. You don't just slap a cover on there and move on to something else. That's what the Big Six does. And sadly, that is beginning to happen in the indie arena.
The Black Dahlia is a prime example.
Yes.
That book had been published before, and J.C. Masick wanted it published with Midnight Publishing because he liked what he saw. Now, most people who know us know that Yvonne and I have been friends for umpteen years. I have brought into Midnight Publishing probably more writers than anybody else because they see that I'm involved and they want to know why. And they trust me. They say, well, if Mary's involved, it must be a good organization. We have people who have been longtime friends like Brandy and Gwendolyn. And then we've got, Yvonne's got 3 cousins, 2 cousins, 2 cousins that are writing with us. And because of one of those cousins, we got Roy Owenby. So it's a network of, I know you, I trust you, I believe you wouldn't steer me wrong. JC doesn't know any of us from Adam's house cat. He never had any affiliation with me or Yvonne. He doesn't know our book pimp, Brandy. He's not in anybody's writers group. He lives out in Hollywood, California, Los Angeles. He just stumbled on Midnight Publishing's website and started paying attention. And he's watching and he's noticing and he's listening, and he hung around and lurked in the background like a nice little troll. Never added anything to the conversation, but he took away a lot of what was happening. So then he reached out to Yvonne. He said, I've been watching the way you and your writers support one another, and I want to be a part of that. So he asked her if she would republish The Black Dahlia for him. And she did. And I have seen the original cover of his first book when it was published. It was nice. It was nice. That's all. It didn't pop, and it, like we talked about earlier, if you don't know who Elizabeth Short was, you really owe it to yourself to just go look her up online and get a little information. She was a young woman in her early 20s. She wanted to be a Hollywood star right after the talkies came out. But Elizabeth was a strikingly beautiful young woman. She had hair that was so dark brown that it was black. And she had piercing blue eyes, which just captivated most people when they saw her. Those were the two things. And she was my mother would have called her a porcelain doll. She had beautiful skin that was very light. She was not a rugged outdoor girl. She was a socialite. She was a beautiful girl, and that beauty ended up probably costing her her life. Macy's first book cover, it was mostly black and white. A white book with like a black image on it, and they did show her blue eyes. But it's kind of like showing you my eyes with my glasses on. If I take my glasses off, you can see my eyes better. But what Yvonne did with this is she highlighted the black part of the Black Dahlia and her black hair and her clothing. But her eyes just jump off the cover, because Yvonne knows you can't sell books if people don't look at them. You can't sell books if you don't take them off the shelf. And true, most of our books are sold through Amazon. There's not a shelf, a physical shelf for them to sit on. But if you're looking for books and asking Amazon for recommendations, and if you say, I want true crime, which this is, it's a historical fiction, basically. So you ask for either historical fiction or true crime, and Amazon will throw up a page full of book covers. You're going to pick the one where the eyes are electric and just stare into you quicker than you're going to pick up the one where the blue eyes just happen to be a feature on the cover. It's science. It really and truly is science. It's been proven that people resonate with images of other people's eyes.
And 99% of the population is a visually driven population. people like to see things. If you go into a department store and let's say you're looking for a man's shirt, but they're all in packages, the first thing you ask the salesperson is, may I take this out and look at it? And it's the same thing with book covers. Every day I get something from Amazon, either for their Audible, their Kindle, their new releases, and I go look at the covers and I just shake my head because the covers are not inviting. They do not make me want to even read the synopsis that's to the right of the page. I scroll down and I delete it. Number one, because all the books are formulas anyway, but the covers just are not there anymore. Authors that I used to read all the time, I don't bother because it's a regurgitation of everything they've written before, and the covers just don't jump out. And this is what I tell my authors. Do you want to stand out or do you want to blend in? And that was the question that I had for the children's author on Sunday. She had a white cover for her book. She said, well, I wanted to show the difference between day and night. But the white cover overshadowed her vision. The white cover gets lost in all the other covers. And some of the covers that I saw at that convention, I wanted to just rip off and do over.
How many bookstores do you walk into? Now, if you go into like a used bookstore, they typically just shelve the books and you have to go hunting. That's part of the joy of a used bookstore. But even the majority of bookstores, used bookstores, will have one or two titles on display.
Yep.
Right in your face. You go into Books A Million, Barnes and Noble. Those are, I guess, the only two big stores that are left, big chain stores. But when you first walk in the store, you're going to be within 10 feet of the front door, and there's going to be either a bin of bargain books or a huge display of either one author's book or one genre. Like they might be featuring true crime this month, but then you go a little farther and you might find children's books. They have what they call Action Alley. This is how you get from point A to point B in any store. They're going to be impulse auctions. At the end of every row, you go down the row and the books are pointing out this way, but then at the very end, there's going to be books here. Because they want you to see those books, the end caps. They sell more of those books than they do anything else because they're in your face. And they call them impulse buys. People see them and go, oh, that's the new Jodi Picoult. That's the new Yvonne Mason. That's the new Gwendolyn Law book. I have to have that. And or be like, well, I've heard about that. I wonder if it's any good. Let me go check it out. So these retailers, they go to school to learn how to be retailers. They go to marketing and publicity classes to learn what the trends are, to learn how to. It's a psychology.
Mm-hmm.
There is psychology involved in sales.
Because it's
and
visual.
Yes. It has to catch your eye. I remember I saw, it was a small display in Barnes and Noble one time. Author autographed copies. And I started flipping through them, and I was so disappointed because the authors had signed them, yes, but then that signature became like a PDF or a JPEG. It wasn't their signature personalized. I like to personalize my books. I like for my readers to open up a book, and I always date my signatures, because just like Rose bought that one book the other day, and the majority of my books are what I would call evergreen. You can pick it up today and read it and go, oh, that speaks to me. Put it down and leave it for 5 years and come back to it. You're going to see my signature. You're going to see my personalized message to you. You're going to see the date that you bought it. And now I just thought of something else. I'm going to start putting where. If it's the annual writers convention in the Rialto, I'm going to start putting a location in there. Because those things take you back to the moment you bought the book. And that's important sometimes.
And
I don't
it recreates the memory of why you bought that book.
Yeah. I don't want a book with an image of the author's signature. I mean, I have a book, The Complete Works of William Shakespeare. His signature is on that book. But he was dead long before this book was created. It's just an image of, you might as well take a picture of something and say, oh, this is legitimate. It's not real to me. And I don't think just the author's name is as important as a message from the author.
I agree, because the message from the author is something that is personal, and it makes the reader or the purchaser of that book feel a connection with that author, and they're more than likely to go and purchase another book because that author took the time to personalize that book. And this is something that I've learned down through the years, is readers, people in general need to feel important. They need to feel like they are someone to someone else, especially someone they don't know.
They're not just a cog in the wheel of money.
Right. That they mean something.
And that's why I don't do it all the time, but I try to make an occasional post about that with my books. Yes, you can buy them on Amazon. But if you want a personalized message from me, you need to come to one of my events.
And what authors, as well as, this is one of my pet peeves. Hollywood celebrities think they are the be all to end all in this world. They are idols to some folks.
Mm-hmm.
Ladies and gentlemen, they're not. They have lives, they have secrets, they have insecurities, they have all the things that the rest of us do. And when they are too busy, too big, too in the air on their own cloud to be personal to someone who has looked up to them for many, many years, and they don't have time for that person, then shame on them, because that person is part of the reason that they are where they are. They've bought their videos, they've gone to see their movies, they've bought their merchandise, they've bought their records, they've bought their CDs, they've downloaded this, they've downloaded that. So when we become so enamored with our success that we forget why we are successful, then shame on us. There are people that live where I live that don't know anything about me. And when they find out, they go, I didn't know that. Why didn't you tell me? Why? I don't need to tell you. If you want to know about me enough, you'll go find out.
I hear that constantly, and sometimes there'll be something from my past that I did or whatever. Well, I never knew you did such and such. I had no reason to bring it up in conversation, whatever it was.
I've been here almost 5 years, and 99% of the people that live here still don't know all the things that I have done in my life. Many of them didn't even know that I was an author before Murder in the Village came out. They thought it was my first book.
I love it.
No, been out there for many, many years.
21st, maybe.
Yeah, right. So
I was at a neighborhood, we had a block party a couple years back, and I was getting ready to go home. I'd done all the socializing I needed. And as I was walking away, a young woman said, wait, are you the author? I said, well, I don't know about the author, but I'm an author. She said, no, I heard that we had an author in our neighborhood. And as far as I know, it's only one. Wish I'd have known what I did then about the 5% rule. But I said, well, yeah, I'm an author. And she goes, please don't leave. I need to talk to you. So we sat down and I talked for an hour or more. And she still has, to my knowledge, hasn't bought a book. But she was so excited about the idea that there was an author who lived in her neighborhood. And the reason for that, folks, is it's been statistically proven that 5% of the people who say, I want to write a book, actually follow through on it and do it. Which, that makes me that much more excited to be at events like we were on Sunday and to be involved with Midnight Publishing as deeply as I am, because there's a lot of 5%ers in our group.
there are.
But the majority of people, I mean, you think about it, 25 authors in Midnight Publishing. That means there's, I can't do the math, but like
There's a bunch of us.
hundreds of thousands of other people out there. And we're just talking about the people who say, I want to write a book.
And
5% of the people who say that follow through and actually do it. There are millions more who never have any inkling about wanting to write a book. It's just not what they do.
Or
And that's okay.
they put stuff on paper and then they hide it. And I don't
We
know
ran
if-
into a few people like that Sunday.
Yes, we did.
I have an idea. I want to write a book. I'm here to learn more. But they always came back with this, if only, or when grandma dies, I'll be able, I think there was one woman that we talked to that she wanted to write a tell-all book, but she wasn't sure how to do it because she didn't want to hurt anybody's feelings.
Can't have it both ways.
I said, make it a novel. She said, they're still going to know that I wrote it about them. I said, and if they've hurt you or caused you problems, if they want to make you write a book, then deal with it.
Yeah.
Write the book and just deal with those repercussions, because they shouldn't have done the things to you that they did that were
And this is
unpleasant.
what people have to understand is if you're not willing to handle whatever consequences there are, and writing, then please, like I say about other things, please go do something else.
Yeah.
Put that dream, want, need, or desire in a box and file it away, because you will never ever fulfill it. There has to come a point in your life where you say, damn the torpedoes.
Well, there was one woman who said that she was afraid that when she wrote the book, it would be such a success, because obviously she's that good. And then it would make her change. And she
Missed
would
that
be,
one.
oh, yes, yes. I think you were actually talking to Mr. Jacob at the time.
How would it make her change?
Just, she's going to be so rich and so famous, and she's going to be on all these TV shows, and she's going to be on all these interviews, and the paparazzi is going to be chasing her.
That sounds
and
like
as a result of her brilliance and magnificence.
That's delusions of grandeur.
Oh, yes. And I looked at her and I said, you know what? You might change. And if you do, then maybe that's who you needed to be all along anyway. But if you don't change and you become this super successful, wonderful author, and you don't change, then everybody's going to say, look, she still sticks to her roots. How unusual is that? I said, what have you got to lose? I said, besides, you don't want me quoting statistics that I know to say how improbable that is. We have the J.K. Rowling, the Stephen Kings, the James Pattersons. We have a bunch of people. They seem like a lot of people that are highly successful. But in the scheme of how many people are on this planet Earth, they are still among the 5%. There are so many people on Earth that say, I want to write a book. And 95% of those people just never do it. They might write a book and they might leave it in their desk, because another statistic, and then I've heard two different ways of it, but either 5 or 6, a novel, and we're only talking about novels, a novelist who is someone who writes fiction, typically a bigger book than a short story, has to write 5 books before they become successful. Now, this is a conversation my son and I've had numerous times over the years. Does that mean they write 5 different books and try to get them published and fail? Or they write 5 different books and leave them in the drawer and they get better and better and better? I have watched, Yvonne, you are going to blow your mind when you see book number 2, because I'm watching his craft grow with his characters. I'm watching his skill. He sent me more chapters this weekend, and he was astounded that I finished them as quickly as I did. And I said, well, your writing is improving. I'm not finding as many mistakes. And when I'm editing, I also make suggestions that I think might be better for the story. You talk about you don't change anybody's voice. Oh, I'm right there changing that voice. I'm giving suggestions, because there are some times that I'll say, Phage wouldn't say that. But that's because I already know his characters so well.
Right.
But I just make suggestions. Do you think this might sound better than that? I don't change it for him. I give him the option. But I mean, I wrote a book, I don't even know how many years ago. I wrote a book for the NaNoWriMo, which no longer does NaNoWriMo, and that stands for National Novel Writers Month. Used to be a thing where every November, the first day of November, you just devote yourself to writing. And you write and you write and you write. And this was going to be my first novel. Nope. It'll be my second, maybe, if you don't count my graphic novels. But that book has been sitting there, and I haven't done anything with it for a while. It's going to be on my not too distant future book to finish. But I stopped working on it because my critique group told me it didn't have enough substance. I needed to add more meat to it. I don't think I do. I just think I need to go back and polish it up just a little bit, and it's probably done. It's definitely in the fantasy realm, but not in a brand new world, because there are things that are supernatural that happen in this book that help carry it along. And you know what? That's all well and good, but that's only number 2. So does that mean I have to write 3 more novels before I become famous and really good? No. I think I've written a lot of nice books. They're not all novels, but who cares?
Let's talk about, since you brought it up, critique groups.
Yes.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, when I first started back in the caveman age, I went to a couple of writers / critique groups, and none of them had been published. By that time, I had 3 books out, had been on television 3 or 4 times. And they were trying to tell me that, again, my book had no substance. And I'm looking at them and I said, and how many books have you got out there? And I get all these excuses. What happens is people that have not, for whatever reason, fulfilled their dreams want to destroy yours because there's a jealousy involved. The excuses I got, well, it's not finished yet. What needs to be finished? Well, I need to polish it. How? You can only polish something for so long before you polish it to death. Literally, you will wear a hole in it. I personally, I don't do beta readers, I don't do critique groups, and I don't do writers groups because it becomes a train wreck. If you're out in public and you see a car wreck and there's 10 other people in that same general area and they see a car wreck, by the time the police get through taking witness statements, you have 10 different versions of that car wreck.
Because everybody sees it from a different perspective.
And writing is a perspective. I'm going to go back to Silent Scream because that has been the most controversial true crime that I have written. It was written from the viewpoint of law enforcement. That's how I write my true crime. Law enforcement loved it. Hardcore true crime readers loved it. Those that just were on the periphery or wanted a sanitized version hated it. And when I would get something like, I think you could have done better, this da-da-da-da-da, my response is this book might not have been for you. Because it is raw, It is in your face, and it is a no holds bar book. Just because Susie Q didn't like what you wrote doesn't mean it's not a good piece of work. It's one person's opinion and their perspective. Murder in the Village is written about some of the village idiots that I live in the village with. The names were changed to protect the guilty. Well, there were a couple that wanted to get personal on their reviews, and one of them said, it's because she hates some of us. Well, yeah, okay, that's your perspective. But let's call it like it is. You saw yourself in that book, and the layers were peeled away. You didn't like what you saw. Bless your heart. Hate it for you. Tangled Minds. When I wrote that book, and Brandy read that book, she said, Mama, that book's about me. I said, yeah, it is. She's proud of that book. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that book is another in-your-face book. The basis is a 16-year-old kid has a child out of wedlock and all the stupidity that she gets herself involved in. And the names were changed to protect the guilty. It's all in perspective. So never allow another person to say, well, personally, I wouldn't have written that book that way. Well, honey, it wasn't your book to write.
You didn't write it.
Exactly. Write your own book. Steep Steps. I don't know if Mary's gotten any not so kind reviews, but we flip reviews. That's what we do. If you read Steep Steps and it's not your cup of tea, maybe you don't know anybody with an addiction of any kind. Maybe you don't have any, or maybe you do and it's in your face, and now you're having to look it within. Just saying. When you get in a writer's group or a critique group and they start ripping apart your work, leave immediately.
Yeah.
Because they're not there to support you.
I will tell you, when I first came to Florida, and my first husband told me that my writing was a nice hobby, but I was wasting precious time that I could be, cleaning toilets with. My second husband said, when are you going to get your book done? When are you going to get your book finished? When are you going to write another book? And he basically is living through me. He loves the fact that I'm an author. And I have one sister that introduces me as her sister, the published author. Most people that are proud of me don't make a big deal about it. They just do it in their own little way. But when I first came to Florida, more than 20 years ago, I threw myself into the writing world because I didn't know that I could give myself permission to simply write. I thought that I needed to learn. I thought that I needed to study. I thought that I needed to associate myself with other writers. The old adage of be the smartest person in the room, or surround yourself with successful people, be with the people you want to be like. That all works well and good, but what I found happened to me was I got so sucked in to other people's dramas, and then I started not writing, but I was always talking about writing, and I was always with other writers. In fact, one of the people that was at the event Sunday came up to me and she goes, Mary, I didn't know that you used to be associated with the Space Coast Writers Guild. I said, I was. And to me, what I've done in the past doesn't affect who I am today. I mean, it might have built me this way. It was a stepping stone, but I don't always talk about the things that I've done before where I am today. It's
Illogical.
no, that's not the word I'm looking for. Irrelevant. I was going to say irreligious or something like that. Anyway, that's too. But she said, but you weren't just involved in the Writers Guild. You were really involved. I said, yeah, I was for a while. And she said, you worked on the Literary Liftoff magazine. I said, I did. She said, I just found a stash of books. You were the acquisitions editor. I said, yeah, I was. So she's telling me, basically giving me my resume. I already know all this. She said, I never knew any of this. I said, why would you?
It's not important.
You don't know about my tenure as a social worker. You don't know that I drove a school bus. There's a lot that I've done in my life that everybody doesn't know. Some people know every aspect of my life because they've been with me from start to finish. And there are people who only know one or two aspects of my life. But she was so excited that I had been involved. What the reason is, she is now their historian or something, and she's putting together a presentation. And she said, come to the meeting on such and such, and you'll hear me talk about you. And you'll get to look at the old magazines. I'm like, I don't need to see the old magazines. I have copies. I don't need that. I don't need to live in the past. My past was just part of how I got to where I am today. And I know that, I was so deeply in the writers group world that I never spent any time writing. I was busy teaching or coordinating or helping other people be better writers that I just ignored my own. And now, thank you again, Yvonne, for telling me to just stop. Just stop, Mary. And giving me permission to give myself permission to write and not be obsessed with perfection, not to be obsessed with, I need to let my critique group read it before I send it off. No, you don't.
Well, and think about this, Mary. I don't know who thought critique groups and beta readers was a good idea. Because let's say you have 10 beta readers. You send your manuscript off to these 10 beta readers. These 10 beta readers read your manuscript, and they send back 10 different suggestions. So by the time you go through all of those suggestions and you start making changes, that is no longer your book.
I did that with Steep Steps. Now, after I got their revisions, I did make a few changes. It was interesting because one woman sent it back to me, and I mailed it out. I mailed out physical copies. I said, mark it up, send it back, let me know what you think. And I have my own rubric. I had a list of questions I wanted them to answer. Did this happen? Did that happen? Did this satisfy your need for such and such? And one of my things was, did you like the way I ended it? Well, there were about a third of the people who said, no, I didn't like the ending. And I'm like, oh, now what? How am I going to end it if I don't end it the way I did? But I had this one woman sent it back. She said, this is too raw for me. Now, it's not that raw, but she was the victim of a sexual addict. And she said, I can't, it's a trigger for me. And I'm like, yes, I did it right.
And this is what you have to understand, people, is she sent it out to a handful of people. That is not the masses. Again,
No.
it's less than 100th of 100th%. So if you as an author send out your book to these critique and writers groups, and you get a third back that say, I didn't like this because you need to really do it this way, and you start changing things to satisfy that minority group, you have basically knocked yourself out of a bigger picture.
Yeah. Look at the angels.
Yes.
That comment we got from that one Yahoo,
Uh,
he's not even an agnostic. He's an anti-theist.
I'm not
He
sure.
doesn't believe in anything, basically. More like a nihilist. He shamed us for writing a book about angels for children.
Actually shamed himself because we laughed at him.
Yeah. My angel book is one of my biggest sellers. It is not the highest ranked book on Amazon, but it doesn't matter. The people who read it love it. It's one of my more juvenile books, I guess. That's another one that probably should be redone
We can redo
at
it.
some point. I know. Next thing you know, somebody's going to be telling me that I shouldn't write books about organ donation. Because, there was one woman, you were with me at Cocoa Village, and I don't think I hadn't started Ramonda's, I just had Sally's Heart. But she told me that she didn't think that we should be selling books that promoted organ donation for children. Well, my thinking about it is people are going to be donating organs, and people are going to be needing organs. And children don't understand why. That's why I wrote Grandma's Heart Attacked Her. Children just don't always understand, why is this person all of a sudden sick?
But you didn't write it in such a way that it dumbed down the child.
No,
You wrote the books in language they understood without it being elementary.
Yeah. And this one woman thought that we shouldn't promote organ donations because it's a gimmick. Now, what that tells me is someone she knows was on the waiting list for an organ and died before they could get it.
And ladies and gentlemen, while we're on this subject, because when we lost Ramonda, we donated her organs, and there is a process, and there has to be criteria. And sadly, some people miss the boat for whatever reason. Let's say I have an 80-year-old mother who's in failing health. She has multitudes of things wrong with her, but she has a bad heart. So let's say she not only has a bad heart, but she's an insulin-dependent diabetic. She has chronic COPD. She has congestive heart failure. She has this, she has that. She is not a viable candidate for a heart because a new heart would not solve the other underlying health issues. Now, diabetes exacerbates everything else. So if you put a healthy heart into someone that is insulin dependent at that age, the diabetes is going to destroy that heart.
It's like giving an alcoholic a new liver.
Right.
He'll just destroy the second one too.
So why would the medical field make that decision? Is it selective? Yes. There's a reason for it. Now,
my cousin, who is the inspiration to Sally's Heart, has had the same heart that was donated when she was 35. She had 2 small children. That heart was the only problem she had. So they replaced her heart, and she's been living with it now for more than 25 years, which is rare.
Very rare.
Like Ramonda's heart was given to another child.
A 12-year-old. So,
because that child had a future ahead of her.
and you have to understand that none of these decisions, as much as I dislike the medical field, and people that know me know I detest the medical field with a passion. I think most of them are stupid and they don't know what they don't know. With organ donation, especially children, there is a criteria, and Ramonda's heart was not the only thing donated. Her liver, her kidneys, her corneas were all donated, and a couple of those organs were donated to adults that were over 50. There was a 58-year-old grandmother that had the opportunity to see her grandchildren grow up. But there has to be a criteria. Otherwise, why bother? That organ is going to wind up destroyed. And so this woman was telling Mary that it's a money-making business, that it's a sham. No, it is not a sham. Every person that requests or is looked at for an organ has to go through a rigorous testing to see if they are viable, if their body would even accept a different organ. 2, if there's any underlying health issues that would exacerbate or start destroying a healthy organ. That is akin to, as the Bible says, putting new wine in an old wineskin. You put new wine in an old wineskin, the wineskin's going to explode because it cannot handle the new wine. It's too fresh, it's too new, it's too full of volume, so it will explode. The same thing with putting a new organ in a body that is already deteriorating. And sometimes it is kinder to let that person go. I speak from experience. It is kinder, it is more humane, and we all have an expiration date. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And when we can accept that and understand that organs are not given out willy-nilly. And do some people die before they have a chance to get an organ? Yes, they may be on the list for years, but a match may not come up. And it depends on your blood type, it depends on your health, it depends on your ethnicity, it depends on your culture, it depends on so many different things as to whether an organ may or may not be rejected by your body.
Because the day that the organs are available, that the time is of the essence, but the day the organs are available, the people who are in line for those organs have to be extremely healthy. If I'm lined up to receive a cornea and Yvonne's lined up to receive a kidney, and somebody unfortunately dies in a motorcycle accident, we've got these organs. But Yvonne's got a cold and I'm suffering from, I don't know, another cold. I've got a cough. They will not give it to us. They will move to the next person in line, because the chances of surviving a heart or liver or kidney, any kind of organ transplant, if you're already sick, your chances drop.
Because the body's going to reject it.
They don't want to put a healthy organ into a sick body. It doesn't make sense.
When a person has an illness of any kind, whether it's a cold, whether it's the flu, whether it's a 24-hour bug, even allergies, the body automatically starts sending its own antibiotics to fight this foreign body that has attached itself to within you. So if you add another foreign body into a person's body who's already fighting a foreign body, it's going to automatically go to that new foreign body and try to get rid of it. That is why organs are sometimes rejected.
I don't have an organ, but I have a stent in my heart. It is considered a foreign body. I'm taking special medication to keep me from rejecting that piece of metal. It's no different than if I had been shot with an arrow or a bullet and that foreign object was in my body. The first thing the doctors would do would be to try to take it out. You don't want to leave something in your body that doesn't belong there.
Ask my son-in-law. He's got a bullet in his back that he's had for years.
Really?
And as he gets older, that bullet moves.
My brother Mike has shrapnel from Vietnam. And, every now and then it acts up. They couldn't remove it, but it's there. Yeah.
So ladies and gentlemen, when someone says, well, organ donation is the big business, I will agree. There are nefarious people out there that, as with anything, are going to break the law because they make money at it.
Yeah.
But you have to understand that in a controlled environment, when you know for a certainty that that person's soul has left their body and the only thing keeping the chest going up and down is a machine, the brain is already gone. It's time to let go and give that gift of life. I have no idea what that little 12-year-old girl has done with her life. I know she is now grown. She is in her 20s. I have no idea what that grandmother is doing with her grandchildren. I hope she's enjoying her great-grandchildren. But if you don't allow that gift of life to move forward, you never know what impact it will have on someone else down the road.
Exactly.
So when somebody comes to you and say, you shouldn't be an organ donor because of it being a sham or big business or whatever, until you're on the other end of that and you see what has to happen before they can even take those organs, the family has to be counseled, both the family of the receiver and the family of the giver. There's tests that have to be run. When the decision is made to donate said organs, it becomes controlled chaos. Because what happens is the doctors where the patient is who's going to donate those organs has to contact the families, the doctors, the teams of where the organs are going. They also have to contact the teams of who's coming to take said organs, because the same doctor does not take the kidney if he's a heart doctor. Whatever organs are being donated, that's how many teams are in that OR strategically removing those organs. They don't do it willy-nilly. They don't destroy the body as they are removing those organs. They are very respectful, they are very kind, and they are very considerate of the family. As soon as
they see this as a mission.
Yes.
The people that are on the organ, the whole team, but the ones that are on the organ retrieval team, they treat the deceased as a sacred vessel, because that's exactly what they are. And it takes a very special kind of person to be able to do this. And each person is specialized. They have one or two jobs to do, and that's it. They only do what they do well. And there are so many, it's not like, if anybody has ever butchered a chicken or another animal for food, you know, when you, I don't want to get too graphic with this, but it's not like you can just reach in and snatch out the kidney and go with it. There are blood vessels and nerve endings and things of this nature that have to be severed in just the right order, and just it's kind of like working on a car.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do it. You can't just go in there and take the carburetor out and leave the wires dangling. You have to unplug and disconnect things in a certain order in order for it to work when you replace it into another vessel.
And when the call goes out, the person or people who are receiving said organs have to immediately go to the hospital. They have a to-go bag ready to go. They have to be, it doesn't matter if they're on vacation. They have to go because the life of those organs is very minimal. The team that is going to put those organs into the recipients have to drop whatever they're doing and go, because they have to be scrubbed and in that OR with that patient already under anesthesia, so when that organ comes through the door, it immediately can go to the OR to that patient. It's a dance.
You know, when my cousin received her heart, I think she had 2 false alarms before she could actually get the heart. For whatever reason, I think one time she had her elevated blood pressure. And everything has to be absolutely perfect or they will not do it. So whatever the situation was, she didn't have a cold or anything like that, but it was, her blood pressure was just slightly elevated, and they said, nope, we're not doing it yet.
And it was probably because she was anticipating, and it can be stressful.
Yeah.
So the whole point of this part of this conversation is little ones need to understand on some level the process. That is why Mary wrote Sally's Heart. That is why.
And I didn't even go into nearly the amount of technical stuff we talked about today.
And that's also why she wrote Ramonda's Extended Warranty.
Yeah.
Because education is the key to understanding. So when people spout off at the mouth about things they know nothing about, 'tis better to keep your mouth shut and look like a fool than to open it and remove all doubt. And boy, do we have some that open their mouth and remove all doubt. This is why we not only are publishers, but we're educators. We want our readers and potential readers to understand why our authors do what they do. They have to write. If they don't write, then the voices in the head would have them beating their head up against a wall or other things. But they also want to teach. And
every one of us has a different set of expertise. I mean, Gwendolyn, I would say, is our queen of domestic violence. And Andrea is the goddess of goth. And then we've got Sherry Ann, who's in charge of gardening, everything gardening.
Yep.
And Carol Bellavance is all about personal growth and personal worship. And, you know, we are a God-driven organization. Doesn't mean we're religious. We might be. But the religion doesn't play a part in what we do. It plays a part privately. But I write about angels and weird stuff, but mostly about angels. I mean, Roy writes about the most amazing little fantasies.
Each author has their own niche in this family of midnight publishing. They are not pigeonholed. They are not told, well, I wrote sci-fi this week. Next week I got this story tumbling around in my head. It goes in a completely different direction. And we don't say, no, you can't write that. You got to write more sci-fi.
Look at Kara Benson.
Yes.
You know, she writes character-driven stories that other publishers wouldn't touch because they won't plot. Well, it has a plot. Salt-Covered Lies has a beautiful plot. It's just not as prevalent as the characters. The characters are the plot.
And it shows the growth. Ladies and gentlemen, our character-driven books shows the growth of the characters. Salt-Covered Lies is one of those. Maniphasia is another one. They are character-driven stories that show the growth of the characters as you go through the stories. The Wilderness of Ren by Roy Owenby is another one of character-driven plots while they're on this journey.
It's just character-driven.
Bless them. Yeah, the queens just keep showing up. The book by Ellie Ryan, Footsteps on an Empty Beach. It is not plot driven. It is character driven. It is the story of a woman in mourning for someone that she loved, her husband, and she gets 24 hours to spend with him. She can either make the most of the 24 hours that he's come back to give her, or she can send him away and live with regret. That is the decision she has to make. Mary's book, Steep Steps, character driven, about sex addiction. Does the main character learn and go forward, or do they keep repeating the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result? So when you have a well-known agent or publisher say, well, we don't do character-driven books because they don't sell, I beg to differ.
Oh, they do.
I would rather read a character-driven book than a plot-driven.
I have the spreadsheet that shows, because my Amazon books are rising in rank.
And they're character-driven.
Yeah. I mean, Sally's Heart, Ramonda's Extended Warranty. Those are both very character-strong stories.
And there's only so many plots out there. There are not any new plots. There's nothing new under the sun. So until the big six get out of their own way and their so-called agents and publicists get out of their own way and understand that you can't keep regurgitating the same old plot over and over and over again, because again, it's going to explode because it doesn't work after a while.
You know what blows my mind? And Kara can relate to this too. I spent so much time, wasted so much time, trying to find an agent for my books. And I have a very diverse portfolio. I don't just write one genre. And even Sherry Ann, she is our queen of gardening, but she also writes fiction. She writes these amazing coming-of-age stories. But when I was looking for agents, I was getting rejected time and time again. And to me, the biggest rejection is when they say, if you don't hear from us within 3 months, consider it a pass. So I'm sitting there watching my calendar, trying to figure out, has it been 3 months? Are they going to come back? And now that I have more than almost 24 books out there, some of these agents are reaching out to me saying, if you haven't found representation for your books yet, I'd love to have you consider coming on board. Too little, too late, too sorry, go away. Because you weren't there for me when I thought I needed you. Now I definitely don't need you. And why would I mean, it's been 4 years since I started the search. Why would I even waste my time moving my books somewhere else?
You wouldn't, unless the ego was bigger than the desire.
That one word, stop, ended my ego. It was like, nope, nope. People don't know how powerful the word stop and the word no can be. I had to learn to trust the process. I had to learn to release and let go. And I had to learn that I don't need to be a micromanager. I don't need to have my finger in every little piece of the pie or the puzzle that is publishing. It has freed me up. Now, I will tell you, my husband looks at some of my books and he goes, why did you let her do it that way? The reason is, I mean, if it's something that I think needs to be changed, I discuss it with Yvonne and we change it. But if I don't see the need to give it to him or any other person in this invisible committee and say, what do you think? Is this good enough? Is that bad enough? Number one, my husband is not a book buyer. He is not a book reader. He is not in the industry. Sure, he might have some good ideas, but he's just one person. And he is not the masses. So his opinion, though powerful and respected sometimes, is not going to be what stops me from publishing. Number one, I can't wait until he gets around to it. I don't have a round to it in my pocket to give him. So the first couple of children's books he still hasn't looked at. He said he wanted to review them and give me his thoughts on them. He still hasn't bothered to look at them. In fact, they sat on the nightstand, not the nightstand, but the TV table next to his couch for months. And when I started feeling better, I moved them, and he hasn't even noticed that they've been moved.
Because it wasn't that important.
No. He just wanted to be involved in it. But I can't sit back and wait for him and anybody else who wants to have their input into my publishing.
Well, and we're back to that thing of, if you don't understand the industry and you don't watch the market, you don't watch the trends, and you don't pay attention, then the opinion is skewed. I watch the market, I watch the trends, I pay attention to the industry. Been out there way too long not to. And the idea of one person's opinion making one decide if they're going to go in that direction or not is not fair.
Besides, he's not my Aunt Susie.
Exactly. You are so right. And ladies and gentlemen, our motto at Midnight Publishing is, I refuse to allow my authors to be blended in to the other, how many millions of books out there?
excuse me, on Amazon alone, 45 million. And there are many titles that aren't on Amazon.
Right.
Amazon is not the end of the publishing rainbow. It's just part of it.
You have outside printers. You have other publishers.
Educational printers.
So you have to be able to stand out. And you have to be able to say, Yvonne, you know what you're doing. I sent Roy his book cover for The Bishop's Mitre. And I got to make a couple of changes because I spelled the name wrong, and then add something to the title. But he loves the covers because the covers make you go, what? I need to see what's going on. We want to shock and awe people. We do not want somebody to go, oh, yeah, okay.
Well, when you sent me the options, you sent me 2 options for you might be an editor. And I liked both of them, but one of them was just a little too busy. And so when I said, I don't know, let's go with this other one. Boom, it was done. I mean, it wasn't a hard, there was no discussion, there was no debate, there was no trying to persuade me that one was better than the other. She just made 2 options, and that gives me, it gives the author more power to make it your own. Most of my books, especially my children's books, she just gets them. And Lizard Patrol, oh my heavens. My only thing with Lizard Patrol was I wanted to make sure he had white paws. And the first little cat didn't. So she fixed that so quickly, so easily. But that book, that was the book that we used as an example in our workshop the other day. And this, I don't know what that man's name was. I have forgotten.
But he giggled through the whole book.
He giggled and he smiled and he chuckled. I mean, he was sitting there like this, just laughing and shaking. And he said, I can't get over this. The cat's expressions are just priceless. And he'll never forget this. He might go back and buy a copy of Lizard Patrol.
And he might come on board as an author.
Who knows? But it doesn't really matter, because what matters is, for a moment, well, for about 5 minutes, we made an impression. We got his attention. And we got him and all the others in that room to stand up and take notice of Midnight Publishing.
So, ladies and gentlemen, since we've been on here for 2 hours?
Almost.
Almost. Mary's getting tired. I know she is, because it's been a long week for her. So we will close for this day. Next week we will have Robert Jacob. He will talk about how he came about to writing the truth and the facts about the pirates. And pirates are some of my favorite characters.
I love reading about them and learning about them. And, he made the comment on Sunday that so many of these stories that we see on TV, Blackbeard and Pirates of the Caribbean and Black Sails or whatever, they are romanticized, and they're based on one document that was fictionalized back in the 18th century.
18th century.
So he's done a lot of research and a lot of checking, because the truth of the matter is pirates were deemed pirates by the king's decree. You didn't necessarily have to be a pirate. It was one of those situations, well, if they're going to call us criminals, we might as well be criminals.
And
they were not.
And some of them actually had letters of what they call letters of marque, where they were allowed to go after the enemy ships. In other
Yeah.
words, if you were a
They
French
were legal
pirate,
pirates.
if you were a French pirate, you would get a letter from the French government saying, yeah, go attack the Spanish galleons or the English warships. And some of them were hung as pirates by the opposing forces. And some of them were just pirates because they were pissed off at their government, much like today. So next week we will have Robert Jacob on the show, and that is the May the 13th. May the 13th. Oh, when is our next workshop?
May the 14th, 12th, I believe.
12th.
What is the, let me
It's
see.
May the 12th. And what are we going to talk about?
You would ask me that. I just saw, not earlier this morning, I saw the title of the class, and I have totally forgotten it, but I'll find it for you real fast. Maybe, if my computer will cooperate. I saw it on
Not, it's right
Facebook
there.
early this morning.
But we hold a free workshop here on the second Tuesday of every month, and we invite you to join us in the chat room to ask questions.
Yes, and how do they get into the chat room?
They go to our Midnight Publishing Facebook group page, and they click on the Off the Chain link, which will take them to the Off the Chain page, and you can go into the chat room from there because it is shown live on our Off the Chain page. And it's free. Just like
It is free.
everything that we do here is
Okay, here, May the 12th, how to market your book and how to take advantage of free options. And I will tell you, the freest and easiest option is to become a Midnight Publishing author. And then when you see your book on Midnight Publishing's page or my page or Yvonne's page, like it, share it, comment on it. That's all you got to do.
The other day, Sherry said, can you create me some videos for Mother's Day and for some general for Chocolate Lover's Garden? Had them created, sent them to her, sent her the ad copy and said, here you go. So this is what we did. In fact, I got to do some for Valerie Allen, the lady that did our conference on Sunday. We're going to do some videos for her because she's helped us throughout the years. But this is what we do, ladies and gentlemen. We don't have millions of dollars. Our overhead budget is like $0. And when people say, well, how do you do it for free? Well, because God blesses me in ways that I cannot tell you that He does. And so I don't charge my authors. Well, how do you make any money? I get that one all the time. How can you afford to do that? Because it's a God-driven publishing house. God said, do it. I said, okay, and I don't question. I just do it. And we've watched authors not only grow, but we've watched them come alive.
Oh, some of us have blossomed and bloomed.
Because they have a platform. So,
Yeah.
Mary, you got any closing thoughts before we blow this popsicle stand?
No, not really. Just, we've talked for the last 2 hours about just about everything under the sun. I'm looking forward to working with, talking with Robert next week. And we met so many amazing people at the authors event. Can you imagine if it had been a full packed house like in years in the past?
I'm kind of excited about next year if I get to go and be one of the speakers at the conference.
Papa.
I have spoken in front of 300 plus people before. That does not bother me at all.
No.
But before we close, I'm going to give you a rundown of the books that are out and the books that are coming out. One more time. 101 Green Gardening Tips by Sherry Ann Richardson goes live on 5/25. You Might Be an Editor is by Mary Brotherton is live on all 4 formats, including Audible. Steps on an Empty Beach by Ellie Ryan is live on all 4 formats, including Audible. 101 Self-Sufficiency Gardening Tips by Sherry Ann Richardson goes live on 5/25. I've got 2 more of her books to put up.
Wow.
God's Timing, Gwendolyn Law, the 3rd in her affirmation series, goes live on 5/25. Journey on a Hostile Sea, Book 2 of The Wilderness of Wren. If you've not read The Wilderness of Wren, which is live by Roy Owenby, I suggest you do, as well as The Amnesia Puzzle. Those are his 2 books that have come out. This one, The Journey on a Hostile Sea, comes out on 5/18. His 4th book, and he's only been with us, a month and a half?
Yep.
His 4th book,
Very short.
The Bishop's Mitre, I will be putting up either later today or tomorrow. The Black Dahlia, a Jake Slater mystery by J.C. Masick. It goes live on 5/18. I suggest, if you don't know who Elizabeth Short was, that you go research her, so when you buy that book, you will understand what is going on. Mistaken Identity by Mary Brotherton. Cute little book. Keep you on the edge of your seat. It is not what you think it is. It goes live on 5/11. I have 2 more books by Sherry Ann Richardson to work on. I have Rose Paddock's new book that she sent me to work on. I have 2 books by Valerie Allen to work on, 2 children's books to work on. So I am going to be a busy person, because not only do I do the books, ladies and gentlemen, but I also do the videos and the ad copies as well.
Which takes me back to the free promotion.
There you go. So as soon as I get all the books caught up, I'm going to start recycling new ad copy and videos for all of our authors. It's busy here at the House of Midnight Publishing.
Y'all, let me tell you how good a thing it is to keep her busy. Idle hands are the devil's workshop.
Yeah, buddy.
And we don't need the devil working with her. It would be bad news for the devil.
Very true. Because he and I have an understanding. If he doesn't mess with me, I don't mess with him. So there you go. Also, get Mary's newest release, A Journey with Angels. It just came out. It is in all 4 formats. I highly recommend this book because I think you'll be surprised. Yes, we are surrounded by angels.
We are. So many.
The Bible
often
tells us that angels protect us, but we have to allow them to.
We have to invite them in. They're like vampires.
Very true. Only on the other side.
We have to invite them in, or they will not. They won't. We joke, but it's not a joke, about the voices in our heads talking to us all the time. Well, the angels do that to me. Those are some of the voices in my head, in addition to my fictional characters. But the angels are there, standing by, ready to help with any number of concerns. They can help you with finding a job. They can help you with keeping a job, or finding a good life partner. They can help you raise your children. They can help you with medical issues. But they can't do anything if you do not allow them into your life. And this book helps you learn some of the ways to recognize when a specific angel is near. And I'll give you For instance, Archangel Metatron loves to come and give you the impression that you're smelling something spicy, particularly peppers, chili peppers, but there's always a floral undertone to it. So if you are working on some problem and you start smelling spices and flowers together, it could very well be Metatron. There are others. So ask, Metatron, are you trying to show me something? And this book tells you other things to look for so you know, oh, well, I thought that was Metatron, but it's actually Muriel. So that's part of what you can find in this book. And there's a place to journal throughout the book, that's part of my favorite part of that book.
Check it out, ladies and gentlemen. And with that, we're going to close the show. We will see you next Tuesday at 1 o'clock in the afternoon for our free workshop. Then we will see you next Wednesday with our guest Robert Jacob to talk about the Florida Authors and Publishers Association and his books on pirates and how he got to where he got with the pirates. See you then.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, darling. See ya.
Bye.
Love you too. Bye.